Yes, welcome to the No State Project. I'm your host, Marc Stevens, author of Government Indicted, with the website, of course, marcstevens.net. I apologize if the video and the audio is out of sync, but hey, what the hell? Not everyone. It's for what I'm saying, not to look at my Sicilian mug. It is January 25th, 2017. Welcome to the broadcast today. We do it live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Mountain Standard Time, right before Free Talk Live. So that if you're going to listen to Free Talk Live, maybe they'll actually correct the errors that they've made against me and the way I do things here on the No State Project. But it's episode 9 of the Wednesday commercial-free edition. We'll get this posted, the audio up at marcstevens.net. Should be today, hopefully, because, hey, I'm jamming tonight. I'm blowing this town. I'm getting the hell out. I'm going to go and forget about all this crap that you people have done on my chat. No, it's not everybody, but it's a damn mess, and I do apologize for that. We do our best to help people who are under attack, and you just can't seem to get away from the bickering and the fighting and the ranting and the raving about everything but helping people. So I'm going to do what I can to get that cleaned up. If I had the time, I would do more of the role-playing sessions myself and not have to rely on other people. Although there are some really good people on there, and even the ones that have caused people to leave have been very helpful. So that's why it's knowing that most people in the chat have done a lot to help others. It makes it really difficult to boot people out of there because I know that they're useful and that they've really helped people in the past, but. It's just getting to a point where it's almost unmanageable. I am busy here all day helping people, like who called up. Gadsden Viper, who called the show on, and I'm going to have that video. I have the video. It's already in the can. It's just a matter of getting it, finished and rendered and posted. So he and his wife was helping his wife with a bogus traffic conviction, and they filed a motion to dismiss, and it was granted. The judgment was dismissed with prejudice. With prejudice, which means it cannot come back. It cannot come back. Well, they may not do that. That would be a huge due process violation. So, I guess it's some kind of saying that I don't remember. If you want to join me here on the big show, 218-632-9399, 218-632-9399. Skype is also Frank Rizzo 3. That's Frank Rizzo with the number 3. And yes, I'm still putting people into the chat because I'm hoping that with some recent changes and some more changes that will come down the line, that people who are under attack don't have to be deluged by walls of text and another name calling and profanity and whatnot. So for this episode 9, I want to start off. It was something I don't remember exactly what it was. It's something about you can gauge, the merit of what you're doing by the class of your criticism. And at marcstevens.net, I don't have a lot of critics. Even on my YouTube channel, which admittedly is very small, but hopefully very soon we'll get to have a lot more people there. But, more people are subscribing, so, hey, that's good. But off of YouTube, again, there's very, very little criticism, except on a particular forum. And someone on that forum was invited on and came onto my forum. And what really drove the stake in the heart for our buddy, the former prosecutor, the all-knowing Wesley Serra, an ambulance, let's just say he's a personal injury attorney in New York. What really drove the man away was when he said that states don't not exist just because Marc Stevens, ultimate idiot, doesn't believe in it. So what he did was he ignored the rational analysis that I gave to support my position that there were no states. And to have states, again, you have to have a body politic. And to do that, you have to have citizens. So what I did was I laid out. And you watch the video that I'll get posted tomorrow. It'll have this, it should be maybe tonight, but definitely by tomorrow morning. To have a citizen, you have to be a member of the body politic, owing a duty of allegiance in return for duty of protection. Now, I have said that for 20 years. That's not my opinion. That's not, that's some frivolous, stupid thing Marc Stevens is taken out of context. He's just create. No. Anybody can look up Laurier versus United States, and they can verify that for themselves. So, because they are reciprocal obligations, one a consideration for the other, allegiance in return for a duty of protection, that's what makes somebody a citizen. And what sends the critics running is asking for proof that those reciprocal obligations actually were created. And the problem that they have, the reason why they run and they can't get away from me fast enough, which is why they never call a live broadcast. We'll do a quick check right now. Let's see. Do we have any critics on the line? Oh, we don't. And no, they won't post anything on their websites, which they do post things about me. We'll get to that in a second. You have to overcome the rock-solid, almost indisputable evidence that there is no government, that what we call government is just men and women forcing us to pay them. You pay, you go to jail. Right? That's why their laws apply, allegedly, right? If you don't pay, you go to jail. And because they are just men and women forcing us to pay them, there is no duty of allegiance in return for duty of protection, which is why people with advanced university degrees like Wesley Sarah and Dan Evans and other high-profile, I shouldn't say high-profile, but other of the handful of critics that I have on markstevens.net, why they cannot even attempt to discuss or engage me in any way, shape, or form. Because they know that's the way it is. They know they can't. So they'll marginalize and they'll talk about other things. But they will absolutely never try to prove that they're citizens. They won't do it. They'll say, well, the people agreed. They'll never, ever try to show that there are a duty of allegiance in return for a duty of protection, because there isn't one. It just doesn't exist. How the hell are you supposed to overcome the facts, the evidence that are apparent to everyone, and even the critics themselves can be cited? You don't pay, you go to jail. It's got nothing to do with consent. I know. That's why. So I mentioned about the pseudo-skeptics on the broadcast Saturday, and you can check that out. I won't talk so much about it, but somebody had posted one of my videos debunking territorial and personal jurisdiction. And I lay out the facts. And this is on skeptics. Basically, it's not true just because you say it's true. And one of the main guys here, I guess, it says he's been quoted here, that the Achilles heel of my position, that there is no government, which I lay out and explain. They force us to pay them. There is no duty of allegiance, no duty of protection, no citizens, no body politic, no state. There's no government, because you have to have a state with a government. And instead of attacking that, what they say is that when asserting something to be true is not evidence that it is true, these people who call themselves skeptics are saying that this is the Achilles heel of my argument. I thought that was the foundation of skepticism. That just because you say something is true doesn't mean it is true. Are all these people, all these so-called skeptics, are they going to start running and joining churches just because the Pope says it's true? Or their neighbor says it's true? Is that what we're going to see, a mass migration of all these skeptics becoming religious all of a sudden? Well, yeah, that's the Achilles heel. The Achilles heel of skepticism, really? That just saying something is true makes it true? Wow. And so somebody added something, and I'm gonna get this on the website. This is just too good. I mean, these pseudo-skeptics who I mentioned, I think that all they do is they have an axe to grind against religious people. They're really upset about religion, and so they use skepticism to beat them up. But the same principles that I also agree with that make them skeptics, they don't turn that on their own beliefs. Because someone's even coming here and saying it's only necessary to provide evidence that the situation is covered by the written word of the law within the range of interpretations placed upon it by other interpretations. They actually said precedent. Precedent is just another opinion. It just may be the first opinion of its kind. It's not necessary to provide evidence. Only that the law is within the range of interpretations placed upon it by older interpretations. So, yeah. So I was calling them pseudo-skeptics because that's not a skeptic. A skeptic is let the data speak whatever the data says. And if they're just men and women forcing us to pay them, then that's the data. And that tells me they're criminals. Doesn't say that their rules are applicable. That's why I have an idea who did this, and I have a whole video that's going to be done on this. This is the other one in line to be done. Again, I know I have a pretty damn good idea who this is. I believe that he's a lawyer. There was a link back to my website from the Rational Wiki, which I quote from Rational Wiki all the time. I really was legitimately surprised to find out that somebody put me in here under pseudo-law as a pseudo-lawyer. Listen to this. I've been very adamant that I'm not a lawyer. Very adamant. I've never been a lawyer. I don't pretend to be a lawyer. I don't pretend to play a lawyer. I am not a lawyer. I have nothing but disdain for the legal profession. That doesn't mean that everyone in it is an evil person. Some are good, some are bad. It's a wide range, like doctors. Nonetheless, this, who I think is an attorney from the East Coast, wrote this about me. Get this over here, won't you? They're lumping me in with conspiracy theorists and also Freeman sovereign citizens. The whole anarchy thing is completely lost on these people. Because why get the facts right? When all you want to do is smear somebody. Another pseudo-lawyer goes by the name of Marc Stevens. Marc is in Arizona and practices a, quote, Socratic, end quote, line of questioning, which is circular. While claiming those in the U.S. government who he harasses are using circular logic. Yeah, I don't have the prison system. And my Socratic line of questioning is circular. Well, I have plenty of examples on the website that anyone can see at markstevens.net, the calls of shame, where you can make your own mind up about that, whether my questioning is circular. They're the ones who are turning around saying the laws apply because they say so. But I'm circular because I question you on that crap. Okay. And making phone calls is now harassment. Oh, please. Please. Fungal. Marc's major issue is his belief that evidence, or factual evidence, as he commonly calls it, is required to prove that the law and Constitution of the United States, along with state laws, apply to him or anyone else just because one happens to be in a geographic place known as the state of Arizona or whichever place. And a lot of that was put in quotes. It's not my belief. I have Scott Bales, who's the Supreme Court Chief Justice in Arizona, actually saying that. All I'm doing is taking their belief and asking them questions. So how much wrong could this guy get in just a few sentences about me? Again, if you want to criticize me and my work, go ahead. But good Lord, at least get the criticism right. I mean, at least quote me right. And then they actually come down here. External links. They link to me. This may have just been posted, or I just didn't notice. I didn't look at the back end of the website to who is linking back to me. Marc Stevens' YouTube page. Please see the video with federal magistrate in Arizona, that's John Buttrick, who allows Marc to question using his logic and reason, and so on. In this video, the judge's explanation is really the final nail in Marc's coffin. Yet, as other pseudo-lawyers will, Marc shall likely continue to put on his charade and get more people into trouble. His radio show is also a nest of pseudo-law blather. First of all, I haven't gotten anybody in trouble. The other thing is, John Buttrick, if you listen, he says the application of federal law and the Constitution is arbitrary. It's not based on evidence. So we're right back to the circular part, which is making an argument without evidence, when you assume your claim is true without proof. So I'm the one who is using circular logic and reason because I expect that when someone makes a claim that they bear the burden. It's called logic, not logic. I will cover this in a separate video because there's just too much to go through, and I don't want to dedicate the entire show to these people. So let's get to the calls. We have Jake.
Hey, how's it going, Mark?
It's going well. Somehow you got unmuted, so I'm glad you didn't, just jump in there. But it's good to talk with you again. What do you got for us today?
Well, I wanted to be respectful as you finished describing the SPLC type who is claiming that you are pseudo-law. And apparently it's kind of an interesting phenomenon in the political world. Like there's the public political sphere, kind of popular culture political sphere, and then there's actual politics that has accessed the ballot and is attempting to do something. And so I kind of view Sam Harris as occupying the political cultural sphere in an interesting way, because he claims to be a libertarian but is clearly not. He's endorsing Hillary and doing things like that because he's claiming that Trump is the greater of two evils and whatnot. Have you followed this controversy at all? Because I wanted to tie it in because it kind of relates to the mentality that classes you as pseudo-law. Basically, this train of thought is Southern Poverty Law Center all the way. Do you see it that way?
It's interesting you said that, Jay, because I did not put it together with them. I figured it was one of the Quantloose guys doing it, because I'm not on, as far as the last time I checked, and no one has pointed out to me, Morris Dees has not put me on any of his lists at this point. So
well, those are probably mutually inclusive type things, and it's the many of the bar licensed Federalist Society types are also I've encountered a bunch of people who have said, oh well, they're Democrats, and they also consider themselves Federalists. And they're basically just conformists who kind of glom on to whatever the highest level cybernetic entity is in a given subject domain, and then just mindlessly accept that without questioning it. And it's kind of funny because Sam Harris just found himself on the Southern Poverty Law Center's shit list.
Really?
They actually published a list of names. Yeah, it's really funny. And so now he's got religion about the social justice warriors, because they published a list that had his name and Majid Nawaz's name on it, and it said that they were Islamophobes and that they were preaching hatred of Islam.
I lost whatever respect I may have had for someone like Sam Harris when he referred to people like me as imbeciles, that people who don't believe in a ruling class, anarchists, that we're imbeciles. So Sam Harris can sit there and he can piss all over religion as much as he wants. He is proven to believe in something called government that is demonstrably false. There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever. And if he took 5 minutes or less to direct the hatred or the disdain that he has for religious people and the logic and rationale that he uses to destroy their positions, if he take just a couple of minutes of his day and apply the same thing to the concept of government, he may actually issue an apology to calling people like myself an imbecile, that he would have to come to the inescapable conclusion.
Well, when did Harris call you an imbecile? Has that happened?
He didn't. He doesn't even. I don't show up on the radar screen for someone like Sam Harris. What he did was he made a blanket statement that people who are against having a government, people who are anarchists and don't believe in having government, that we're imbeciles. He made a blanket generalization like that. Well, you would think someone as smart as him.
I've seen him say that. I've seen him say things like that in the past. Although it's kind of funny because you or I could destroy Sam Harris in a logical debate. with no trouble whatsoever, because what it is it's a value problem. It's a value assessment problem, and that's the only way that, his framework we're in agreement with, but his value assessments we're completely in disagreement with. It's kind of funny because before they put the Southern Poverty Law Center put Sam Harris on the shit list, he said, I viewed this group as someone who was telling us, who the conspiracy nuts and who the bad guys were, and it's just hilarious. And then it was also funny that Majid Nawaz was also put on their latest published shit list. And we have some reason to believe that the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms is actually, sympathetic to the SPLC, and that they almost work together. That the SPLC can basically direct this totally unconstitutional portion of the government. And when I say unconstitutional, I'm kind of saying that with kind of my backlog training as a propagandist more than anything. And so please forgive me, but there are degrees of evil certainly in the government. And, as you've said many times before, I don't view somebody who works for the post office as the same level of evil as somebody who works for the, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, because you've got essentially people that think that it's okay to kick down people's doors and murder them, and people that are going to, file the mail and the incorrect slot or whatever. So,
well, sure.
That makes sense?
Well, yeah, and for those who may not be aware of what you're talking about when you use the acronym SPLC, that's the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they're just to me they're a hate group. They can't get too much right. They label anyone who disagrees with the left-leaning progressive type government as a terrorist. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
With the Democrat Party, actually, because they basically had an oversimplified worldview that basically said, okay, the picture on the ground as Martin Luther King saw it at approximately, in that time period, we're just going to extrapolate out from that and just assume that in perpetuity, the Democrat Party, the Democratic Party is always the good guys. And it really is just kind of a dumbed down, oversimplified view of the world where, if you challenge the SPLC to say, okay, should every criminal act have a valid corpus, they wouldn't. You'd be like speaking Greek to them, and so they basically put victims like Randy Weaver in the same category as the Ku Klux Klan because of what they can impart to Weaver's personal private views, and so I guess Weaver was a white separatist, and that then, according to the SPLC's worldview, as well, a white separatist wouldn't have gotten along really with Martin Luther King Jr.'s crowd, so the government should be able to murder his wife and his son. They should be able to kick down his door and do whatever they want to him because he disagrees with our basic perception of reality.
Well, you're basically describing anybody who believes in government. And that's why you have such division now. Where I spoke to someone yesterday, and he was under the impression that no Democrat could be religious because religion supposedly teaches it's wrong to kill, and so to be a Democrat you have to be for abortion. I'm like, that's just not true. That's a generalization. There are a lot of people that are Democrats, and I know some of them that are pretty much totally against abortion. So, but what you're saying, but that's the mindset. If you don't agree with me, it's not to be a skeptic, because what obviously is going on here. Statism precludes you from being a skeptic, apparently. If you are a statist, then you do not apply the same standards of skepticism to the concept of government. And Sam Harris is a perfect example of that. And that's what, and it's irritating. Look, if you're going to call me an imbecile, fine, but don't call me an imbecile because the evidence that I presented is on point. And don't call me an imbecile because I'm right about this. Call me an imbecile for other reasons. I'm an imbecile because I moved to a place that says, that's hotter than Vegas. That's maybe some people think I'm an imbecile for living in Mesa. But I'm not an imbecile because of the material that I'm putting out there. I mean, I could sit here and say that Sam Harris is an imbecile. He's not an imbecile because he's a neuroscientist. He's a very smart guy. He could be an imbecile because he paints with such a broad brush while calling himself a skeptic. But I'm not.
Right. Well, I mean, it is. Neuroscience takes in a lot of territory, and there are a lot of people who've gotten neuroscience very, very wrong. And then there's a sliver of people within neuroscience who have gotten neuroscience really right. And to put Sam Harris's neuroscience on the same kind of pedestal that I put Jeff Hawkins' neuroscience on, or Ray Kurzweil, those are guys who are figuring out the actual functionality of the neocortex, and they're figuring out how the thalamus selects between, basically threshold firings within the neocortex to direct our attention. I mean, that's at a whole different level than, the neuroscience that Sam Harris is aware of. Sam Harris is not going to be building synthetic neocortices that operate on the same principles that ours do. That's not going to happen anytime soon. He's just now figuring out like the first chapter in Jeff Hawkins' book. And so I mean, I don't know. I'm just not that impressed with Harris's neuroscience background, and his conflation of determinism with, he's got a lot of muddy ideas in there, but I do like his writings on religion, and he could popularize a show like this if we basically could get him into some kind of a moderated debate with you, where essentially he'd be forced to defend all of his muddy ideas on the state, because it's kind of funny because his framework is valid. Like he said, like we should be trying to minimize any collateral damage, because if you have a bomb go off in a village and somebody's head rolls down the street, to the family of that person, that's the same as if the Taliban dragged them out and beheaded them over a log, like in that movie Lone Survivor or whatever. Movie / book.
Yeah, well, I don't mean to cut you off, but I got a lot of calls, and I have a much shorter show this time. I think what we can accurately say here with people like Sam Harris, who are very smart, no one's taken away from his intelligence, that when they buy into the concept of government, that is blinding them. It blinds them and makes them sort of incapable of putting the same skeptical principles towards the concept of government, that they have no problem, apparently, putting it on other subjects, like whether it be philosophy, religion, or something else. And it's that damn blindness. And look what it does. It makes him take on the same kind of religious persona where you just paint with a broad brush. Oh, all anarchists are imbeciles. How about Funko? We're not all imbeciles. Some of us are, some aren't. But the generalizations, I can really do without the damn generalizations. If you're going to be a critic of something, at least stick to your core principles of skepticism and don't engage in logical fallacies and start painting everybody. It's like saying every Muslim is a terrorist. They're not. If there was, there wouldn't be any Christians. There wouldn't be any atheists. There wouldn't be any homosexuals. There wouldn't be anybody other than, Orthodox Muslims. There's a billion of them. If they were all terrorists, if they were half terrorists, give me a break. I'm not saying he did that.
He does not make that claim.
I'm just saying, I'm using that as an example of where you use these broad generalizations, and nothing really good is coming from a broad generalization. I say that governments...
The interesting thing to me is that Harris does actually understand, to some extent, the value of a corpus, and so that is actually the core. That's the core legitimizer or delegitimizer of the state.
No, it's not. No, it absolutely is not. No? The only way to get to a legitimate state is, like I started the broadcast, you have to show that there are citizens in the body politic making up the state and therefore hiring or having a government. If you don't have evidence of a duty of allegiance in return for duty protection, you do not have a state and you do not have a government. you can say the same thing. Well, John Gotti is protecting a neighborhood here, but we can't just go to him without a corpus. That doesn't, and so to answer, and we'll have to finish on this. Jerry on the forum brought this up, or the chat rather. If there was a duty of protection, would there be a duty of allegiance? Well, there would be an agreement. You don't get a duty of allegiance and a duty of protection just by saying, I'm going to protect you. And now the person has to make an agreement there. So I do disagree with you.
That's a little bit different the way that I see it, because the corpus is only the selector. It's only basically the jury finding the corpus would be the selection mechanism. It wouldn't inherently legitimize anything if the jury was wrong, but the jury is the best selection mechanism possible, an actual jury.
Well, it might
and when
be.
I say actual jury, that means that just like I really think that there's a good analogy to be made between, Kurzweil points out that there are 100 neuron units in the neocortex that act as pattern recognizers, and that's basically, those things will kind of surround a data point in reality, and then this pyramidal hierarchical stack is basically our ability to rank things in priority, rank things in importance, and that is the essence of linear human intelligence.
Okay,
it doesn't take into account deterministic logic, but that's what the jury does.
But how
the jury
is that?
Is basically.
But I got to be quick because I have a whole list of calls and I only have a half hour left. How does that prove that there's a duty of allegiance in return for duty of protection?
There is no duty of any kind, except there is a duty to not attack people. Like, that is the only duty.
Okay, but there's no duty of allegiance in return for duty of protection, and that and that is the key. That is the key to showing that the whole system is illegitimate.
There is a giant network of people who are going to claim to be protectors.
Sure.
Like starting tomorrow, you're not going to press a magic Rothbard's red button. It doesn't exist, and so there is an is-ought problem here, and there's also a how much could we fight back the state and beat it back into some kind of a acceptable, or some kind of a tolerable, entity, and the number of people that we could have fighting on our side to basically just fighting purely against this state is pretty large if you basically take into account that, the corpus is a valid selector, because you're not going to protest the police when they arrest Bittaker and Norris. Well, you're just not.
I understand. This is something that we're going to have to discuss on another show because I'm running out of time here.
Okay.
Yes, there has to be an incremental. There's going to be an incremental, I believe, push to get to a voluntary society. It's not going to happen overnight. I discussed with Joey last week that I see as an intermediary there would be some kind of Georgias-type society where there would only be one particular tax on land, and that would help transition to a voluntary society. But not something we have any more time to discuss because I got a whole line of calls that I'd like to get to. But call and we will be live this Saturday, so call again.
I'll try to. Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate the
Goodbye.
call. Jake, thanks. Jake with Fully Informed Jury Association. And I see the value in having the jury, but the jury in no way gives legitimacy to the criminal organization that forced every one of them to participate. So especially having a jury-type system that's not based on coercion through a criminal organization, consensus as to what the evidence really says, that's I think a good thing. All right, we'll try to get to everybody here, so please be patient. Don't want anybody drop off just yet. We got Jay back in Texas. Jay, what do you got for us today? You see you're having a problem with that there phone. Let me drop that one, and we'll pick up.
Hello.
Right. Yeah, Jay, we got you on the other line. What do you got for us today? Welcome back, first of all.
Me?
Yeah, Jay in Texas.
There we go. Great. Yeah, I don't know. I think the Anunnaki have got a hold of my phone. Every time I call your line, I'm waiting for my turn, and all of a sudden my phone just stops working. So somebody's reaching out and disrupting. Anyway, yeah, I tried to call Saturday and obviously couldn't get through. So I sent you an email yesterday. I'm very interested on your take and your approach on property taxes.
That's right. I remember. Yeah, we have had some limited success with that, and I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that your house is on the line. It's different with other taxes or traffic where you can walk away. You know, so people generally, unfortunately, we had someone in Texas, in McAllen, who wound up moving, so he could not see it through. And that would have been nice. But we have had some limited success with that. I do it the same way. The property tax is based and I think I mentioned to you, I have some videos, some call of shames with the tax people in Maricopa County. So I have the tax assessor. I think his name is Hopkins. And
yes, I've gone on your page, and I've kind of gone through pretty much everything that's really associated with taxes. Most of it is more of the IRS end, which is a whole nother ball of wax. We've had a discussion about that. The property tax, like you said, is rather immediate, and it does affect your life in your house is on the line.
Yeah.
The principle is still there. Now, the difference I see is a traffic stop is so far removed from this particular situation, because that's not, that's an unexpected event. You get pulled over. Now, if you're riding around, quote unquote illegally, you can expect it at some point, but you're addressing it right then and there. With property tax, it's coming. And so I guess my question is, do you wait until they approach you and say, hey, where's our money? Or do you do a preemptive strike by sending them a letter asking them why you owe this, or provide proof that you owe the money?
Well, we've done it both ways. I prefer to set it up before someone makes a payment. Let's say if they make, and generally people can make a payment on the protest, but we set them up first. And look, I know that you're wanting payment on such and such a day, and then you ask them your questions. You ask them, look, is the basis of this tax your position that just because the property and I are physically in Texas that your laws apply? And they'll say yes. Great. Do you have any proof that that's true? And I want to point out something right now. Anybody who says that asking for proof is a circular argument, you just wow. And Calvin is able to catch the show live here. I can't. I hope you got to see some of the links with these so-called wiki rational people. The idea that asking someone for proof is circular is so unbelievably stupid. You'd like to think it came from Morris Dees himself, but I don't think so. That stupidity is coming from a lawyer. It's coming from a lawyer. I just absolutely. Anyway, to get back to you, Jay, I'm sorry, but that's the way how we get it started, because just like with other taxes, you're going to want to have a statement of facts that you can base your position on. You'd say, well, what the hell are you saying that they're acting in bad faith and proceeding without evidence? Where's your proof, sir? Oh, well, I called you, whoever it was. I called Agent X on this day. I asked him if this is the way you do business. He agreed it was. I asked him if he had any proof, and he couldn't give me any. So I asked him to drop it, and he refused. So I surmised, and my position is, if you have no evidence to support your claim and you're going to attack me anyway, then you're acting in bad faith. So you and I always have a firm factual foundation on which to go by, so that when they do come out with this crap, where's your proof? Here it is, Jack. Here you go, tough guy. Gave you every opportunity.
Right. Again, we're still approaching this with the Socratic method by asking questions and asking for that timeline of where exactly did we have a contract? Where did we shake hands and decide to do this? And they can never provide that. Now they'll say, well, when you filed for your homestead exemption. Well, you volunteered to be part of the system, you know, and by registering your house with the state or the county, it now became part of the tax roll.
Yeah, and that's why we always ask them, what would have happened if I didn't do that? Well, we would have sent so-and-so from this agency down, and we would have fined you for every day you didn't. It's the same thing that little criminal, Ray Persinger, I went with up in New Hampshire last year. This criminal lying piece of – he said, Bill went and got the permit. What if he didn't? He says that's the only evidence he needs for jurisdiction. He got the permit. What if Bill didn't get the permit, Ray? What would you have done? We would have filed a cease and desist order. But I thought you wouldn't have jurisdiction without the permit. Oh, we don't need – yeah, you're damn right you don't need the permit. The permit is completely irrelevant. So not only is it anyway, you use the Socratic method. You don't make these statements. You ask the questions to bring that out. And so then you can so you would agree that my doing these things, compulsory or otherwise, is completely irrelevant to whether you believe you have jurisdiction or not. And well, yeah, your actions, other than being physically there, are irrelevant to whether they believe they have jurisdiction.
Okay, right. Now I will say that, you know, obviously I'm going to approach this from. I'll listen to anybody, and I can weed out those that don't make any sense. And then I read comments, and people go, yeah, go ahead and try that and see where it gets you. Now, one of the other angles that I've seen approached deals with adloidal title and, you know, supreme title and saying that you traded silver for the property. You didn't purchase it. You converted silver or gold to this property, and they take that information. They go, well, we're going to have to put that in a special file, and basically what it does, it pulls you off of the tax roll, and it just sits in that file, kind of in limbo.
I doubt it.
Okay.
I doubt that's true.
They say that the adloidal title is like supreme, and it overrules everything else. And my view on that is, sure, go ahead, tell them that. See if that works, because now you're making an assertion.
Yeah, and they would need proof. Yeah, they need proof to have that. And they say another proof by assertion fallacy. And you'd have to prove that. They would have to somehow prove that they are not paying the tax every year and are not getting attacked by the local tax thieves. So it would be nice if that were true. But I see no merit to it whatsoever. They don't give a damn. Look, again, everybody, the one qualification that they look at, and I have enough evidence directly from the source on this, there's one qualification, your physical location of the property. End of discussion. If it's in if it's in that area that they call the county, they believe that that's the magical quality necessary for their rules to apply. And that's it. They don't care if you use silver. They don't care if you used unicorn blood. They don't care.
Right.
It's another one of those theory. It's not a theory in a lay sense. It's just something somebody concocted and thought that it's the highest. No, it's no merit to. Someone please show where there's merit, and I will be shouting it from the rooftop with my microphone.
Okay. Well, again, that's in the email that I sent you. That's kind of how I said, use the Socratic method. Put the burden of proof on them.
Yep.
To prove that these monies are owed, because it does come in as they say it's on the paper. It says it's not a bill, but it is a bill, and it's pardon my French, but it's shit weasel double talk. It's Politico talk.
Well, sure. Sure. Well, I would say this. Not only do you call them directly at the county assessor and treasurer, okay, you want to get them, and they may tell you it's somebody else. It may be BS that it's somebody else, but you cover your bases and call them anyway. And I would get and I would contact the county commissioners. I've done this here in Arizona, and the chairman up in Prescott admitted that it was way out of his pay grade to even address a question such as what proof do you have that your rules apply just because someone is physically in Arizona. Get to a county commissioner's one of their meetings. They usually have a weekly or bi-weekly meeting, and confront them on that and say, I have property located right here. It's physically in Texas. You guys operate under the presumption that because my property is physically in this area, physically, not legally, not politically, but physically, you believe that that means that your Constitution and rules and laws apply and that you have jurisdiction to tax me. I want to know in front of everybody here, do you have any proof that that's true? And then you can use that against them if you pay, let's say you pay, and then want to get the money back. Because you'll not only be able to show that it's unfair that they're proceeding against you without evidence, they're doing it knowing they have no evidence. So there's your bad faith. So you got your due process violation and your bad faith. And no, just because I'm pointing out due process violation doesn't mean I'm invoking the protection of the law or that you are. All you're doing is pointing out the contradiction that they're a bunch of damn criminals. I had to give that disclaimer.
Right. Okay. But so a preemptive strike would be to contact them and say, listen, I know these taxes are due according to you. I'd like to get information. I want to find out.
You don't even have to do that. Just go right for the throat and say, look, I've already confronted and spoke with the tax people about this. I know you do business this way, you know, that if I'm physically in Texas, the laws apply. Do you have any proof that that's true? You don't have to give them all the background information. Just go straight for it. This is how you do business. I want to know if there's any evidence to support this, and plug away.
Right. So going to contacting the tax assessor's office and just go straight to it and say, I understand you operate on the principle that because I am physically located, my property is physically located, that your laws apply to me.
Yes. Physically in Texas, that your laws apply. And they'll say yes. Then you just ask them for proof of that.
Okay.
All right.
Can someone provide me proof? That's out of my. That's not at my desk. That's at another desk. All right. Put me in touch with them then.
So at this point in time, you personally can't even tell me what that evidence would be. You couldn't personally prove that your rules apply to me. You can't do so. And then you get their name and everything, and so you can discuss. You can do if you have to sue for the money back, then you can say, I asked so and so. I asked them directly if they could tell me what the evidence, if they were qualified to make such a determination, and they weren't. And then you stack those up because no one's going to be qualified to do it. I've had the city attorney in one place in Texas. The city attorney told me they weren't qualified to make such a determination. And I said, really? And yet somebody without an advanced university degree does? I got to move on, but keep in touch.
Okay.
I appreciate the call, Jay. Keep in touch and let me know how it goes.
Hey, one last thing. One real quick.
Your phone just dropped off bad. Yeah, you're going to have to email that or give me a call on Saturday during the Saturday broadcast because your line just completely fell off there. But we have a new caller, area code 510. You're live.
Hello.
Yes, you're live on the No State Project. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Jeff from Fremont, California.
Jeff from Fremont. How you doing today? What do you got?
Good. Can't complain. Beautiful day out here, just so you know. We have been in contact a little bit email. The response to your Brady request from the Santa Clara County Court, probably last week sometime, and I just wanted to discuss that a little bit with you and kind of get your your feedback on how I should proceed.
Well, I helped you with that response, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, you did say that we should go ahead and file for prosecutorial misconduct. Now, I wanted to kind of go through this and maybe get a little, feedback from you as far as, the responses that they gave and how I should put that into the motion for prosecutorial misconduct.
Didn't I actually respond point by point to the request to his response to? Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong person. for this.
You might be thinking of the wrong person, because they responded to me, and then I emailed you about it, and you said just do the thing for prosecutorial misconduct with the template.
Oh, okay, because there was somebody else that had gotten a response back, and I don't remember if it was California or not, and I did a point-by-point breakdown of his garbage, and so I'm sorry about that.
Okay. Oh, no worries. No, I sent you. They were actually they were photos of the complaint or of the response. Like there were 3 photographs. It wasn't like a PDF or anything. So maybe, I don't know if you actually read it.
Well, again, the other one I know I did a point-by-point analysis of, and I actually talked to. I guess it must have been someone else, because I think I talked about him on the air. Because it wasn't on the air, because I did mention on the air that I may have done a video on that. I decided against doing that. I just had too much on the plate.
Okay.
So what you could do is resend it to me, and I'll go through and I can give you some points on what I would go through. But if we've got we got about 9 minutes left on the show today. So if you want to just, we'll get in as much as we can.
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, for anyone that's listening, I think it would definitely help out. Basically, I filed the motion to dismiss and the Brady request, and then they actually responded to each of the 10 or 11 points of the Brady request, and I just want to go over a couple of them really quick, so I know, because I called them and left a message for them to call me back, and I don't know if they're if they do call back, I kind of want to know how to respond, which I have an idea of, but I think it'd be good for the listeners as well.
Sure.
So the number 2 point on the Brady request is I'm requesting the name of any witnesses who are experts in the interpretation and application of California law, including California traffic laws, the prosecution relies on. And the response is that they're going to call Officer Eric Brooks, which in this case is the citing officer in this case. Now, my problem with that is that aren't they going to object if I ask him if he's an expert in the application of California law, if they bring him to the stand?
The interesting thing is I think I would respond by having him clarify, say, are you actually calling a police officer as an expert witness?
Okay. I mean, that was kind of the thing I was leading, towards when they call me back, is kind of clarifying that.
Well, it's I need a little more context to really answer this better. So to go a little further in there, when you ask for the name of the witness with personal first-hand knowledge that the Constitution and Code apply to, because you're physically in California, did they say the same police officer?
So point number 4 is any evidence alleged defendant is subject to the constitutional laws of the plaintiff state of California just because alleged plaintiff is physically in California. Their response is that the Los Altos Police Department is not obligated to disclose any information sought by this request and objects to producing any evidence in response.
And yet they're saying the police officer is an expert. Well, I think what's happening here is you can make your objection, and I would definitely file the motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct, because here, if he had evidence, he's saying he's not required to disclose it, which it's an essential element of the charge. So good luck with that. Because at trial, yes, I would absolutely be objecting to the witness because there's no personal knowledge. The police officer, the cop, the prosecutor is going to absolutely insist that he's an expert. But once you get him on cross-examination, he's going to go opposite of that, and he will object on grounds he's not an expert. And now you'll have it in writing to use against him and say, sir, I think you need to take a moment and really, really appreciate the gravity of the situation you just put yourself in. I have in writing, went through the United States mail. You said this police officer was an expert. You just objected, saying he's not.
Yep.
So the judge is probably going to caution you in how you respond right now. Which one is it?
Right.
So
go ahead.
I was going to say that you don't have to. It's not a problem because we know he's going to contradict himself later in person.
Mm-hmm.
They do it, even if he didn't say this and you didn't do any kind of discovery or Brady request like this. They do it every time. You object to the witness being put on the stand as a witness because under Rule 602, he's not qualified to testify because he didn't have personal first-hand knowledge. They will adamantly disagree with you and tell you to go to hell in a legal sense. And then on cross-examine, I mean, I've been writing about that for 20 years. They do it every time. You know?
And that's kind of what I expect to happen, which is weird that they would actually respond to this Brady request saying that they're going to call the citing officer as an expert witness, as an expert in the applicability.
Well, they have to put him up as qualified if they're going to rely on him. Unfortunately, Brady says any exculpatory evidence, any information that you can be used to impeach his witnesses and evidence has to be disclosed. He has to know that the witness doesn't have personal first-hand knowledge. He has to know. It's his responsibility because the evidence is not in the file. It's not there. So he's obligated to speak to the police officer as anybody is with a witness, whether you're a prosecutor or not. If you're relying on a witness, it's your responsibility to investigate and make sure they have personal knowledge. And he has to know that. And he's lying, saying he's an expert. Boy, I actually, on a personal note, would love to hear a report on what happens at trial because we were able to, we know from Rebecca here in Mesa, and it happened in Chandler, Arizona, they did the same thing. Even knowing in advance that's what you're going to do, they still insist the witness is qualified, put his butt on the stand, and the first two questions on cross-examination, they're objecting to the qualifications of their own witness.
Well, what's really interesting about this response as well is point number 9 says evidence you have to provide the witnesses relied on have personal first-hand knowledge of the matters they are to testify to.
Right.
And their response in this says the city of Los Altos and the Los Altos Police Department are not obligated to disclose any information sought by this request and object to producing any evidence in response. So doesn't that contradict number 2?
Yeah, read it again. Read it again for everybody.
Which, the response?
Number 9.
Okay, number 9. Evidence you have to prove the witnesses relied on have personal first-hand knowledge of the matters they are to testify to. And the response that I actually have here in writing is that the city of Los Altos and the Los Altos Police Department are not obligated to disclose any information sought by this request and object to producing any evidence in response.
So what they just did in writing was commit a textbook Brady violation. You're asking for evidence that could be used to impeach them, and he is objecting to that. This is what I say, everybody. If they had the evidence, why wouldn't they just produce it? Why would they do something here and say that evidence that's absolutely essential to prove their case, to prove that the laws apply, and to prove that they were violated? Why would they say that they're not required to provide that under discovery? So obviously, follow me here for a second, Jeff. Obviously, the material you're asking for is essential. And by admission here, it's not already in the file. It's not a part of the record.
Yeah. And I have not pled anything in this case yet. I have a so-called arraignment on March 21st. So I know it's a little ways out, but
you can prep.
I'll bring this when I go there.
Yeah, I would send that to me. I can give you some help with that, and I would definitely file for prosecutorial misconduct. And you've got a written instrument that you can quote him from. He can't prove jurisdiction without it, and he cannot prove his case. You have documented proof here, his own statements, that should cause the judge, if he's going to be honest to any degree, to grant the demur, because the demur is one of the grounds for a demur is that they did not set forth sufficient facts to show a violation. Now, just accusing someone of violating the code is not sufficient to show that the code was violated. You have to have proof that it applies. And they have to assume that on behalf of the prosecution, because he's saying explicitly, we are not required to give such information to the defendant. He's admitting that this information isn't there.
But not only that, like so those those things I just talked about are great. But number 4 and 6 of the Brady request asked. Number 4 is about jurisdiction, the evidence that the laws apply. They also responded the same way. They don't have to provide the evidence. And number 6 is any evidence of a valid cause of action. Their response is that they're not obligated to disclose any information.
Wow.
And so they already have no standing, no jurisdiction, no qualified witness. They're proceeding arbitrarily. And it seems like I don't know why any judge would even want to hear this, or why these guys would even want to proceed, to be honest.
This is great. This is something I want to do a video on, and I can link back to the show so that people can hear you relate this directly to from what's going on. But we'll have the documents that I can put in a video and show. I'm going to go out. I think you're off to a pretty good start to be able to get those admissions in writing. Yeah, and I know critics will turn around and say Marc's an idiot, but Jeff, don't listen to this knucklehead. The prosecution's not required to provide that. And I'll say it again. You can't prove a rule was violated unless you can prove it applies. And to turn around and say they don't have to do that is and that you're saying an element of the charge doesn't have to be proved. So just take jurisdiction completely out of the picture here. It's an essential element of the crime. They're saying they don't have to. And like I say in the video that I'll post later today or tomorrow, that the burden of proof for the code applying is because we said so. But their burden of proof that it was violated is beyond a reasonable doubt. That's called a double standard, you criminals, you. And that's a fallacious double standard to say that the standard for one element is different for the standard of another element. Oh, come on. You see why I get frustrated when I get the criticism, Jeff? Because they're never addressing the actual criticism. So
I understand.
I think
and
you're going to.
The other thing too is that let's say we give them a pass, even on jurisdiction, which I know you're just completely. I get that. Let's say we give them a pass on jurisdiction, they still have no standing. They still have no qualified witness, and they're proceeding arbitrarily.
Absolutely, and so right, good point, because if the witness is going to testify that you violated the law, he has to have personal firsthand knowledge that the laws apply to you. And to say that they have a free pass for Rule 602, then okay. If you're going to say that Rule 602 doesn't apply to the prosecution, then it doesn't apply to me. But I can guarantee you, I've done this, I've watched it, and other people have done it. If you pull somebody randomly out of the audience and say they're going to testify on your behalf, I'm telling you Rule 602 becomes as serious as a heart attack for these people. But they won't apply it to the prosecution. And you can say, hey, I don't need personal knowledge of this. My witness doesn't need it because look, it's a double standard, and I wish I had more time, but I've got to get this posted. I appreciate the call, Jeff. See, these are the calls we need first. I would say if you want to finish, also call in on the show on Saturday, because I think this is very instructive, and I think that there are people listening that would really benefit from this discussion.
Yeah, I will. I'll email you again the response. Like I said, it was some pictures, and you actually responded. You responded very quickly, and you just sent me the thing for prosecutorial misconduct. So I don't know if you actually went through this, but I mean, this is golden. I mean, this is just admission that they are full of shit. They are full of crap.
They are. And just to point out, I don't send the motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct with the motion to dismiss package, but I do comp that as a follow-up for people like Jeff.
Yeah, I bought the package a long time ago. We've sent numerous emails, but very sporadically, not not continuously.
That must have been on a day I was. Well, like a typical day when I was really jammed, and that was the easiest thing to do at the moment was to send you to get you started on that. But I'm glad you called and followed up. I'm really interested in this, and I want to definitely have you stay in touch with us so that we know how this turns out. And maybe we can get with this much advance notice, maybe we can get a media rep that can be there and be a witness to what happens, and can also be a second witness, in addition to you, of course, to testify on the show and report on the show as to what happened.
Well, the other thing I did too is I bought those glass. You talked about buying some glasses with a video camera in them.
Yeah.
And I bought those glasses and I wore them when I did my arraignment the last time, which I don't know if I can send you the video, but I mean, it's really good quality and nothing came of the arraignment. I mean, he was just like, I'm not going to rule on the motion. And I was like, well, then I'm not going to plead. Or he was like, well, you could plead and then withdraw the plea if the motion is ruled on. And I said, well, I'd just rather not plead. And he was like, okay, fine.
Oh.
But that was all that was.
Okay, or at least he didn't force a plea of not guilty on you. Well, that's great. I'm glad that you were able to do that. Hopefully we get some footage. That would be fantastic. I do appreciate the call. Hey, email that to me, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And I'll do this is something I need to do a video on. So I'll definitely look for that. I appreciate that. So thanks for the call.
No problem.
All right. Appreciate the call. Jeff in Fremont, we're definitely going to be keeping track of that one. Most days I'm really busy, so if I don't respond with too much, please don't take it personal. But hey, I did send the motion to dismiss for prosecutorial misconduct, so it's not like I was blowing it off. I am very interested in helping everyone get through these with as little damage as possible, and that's huge. To have the prosecution admit straight up, they don't have to disclose whether the witness has personal first-hand knowledge. Wow. Maybe one of these right out of law school types, they hire the newbies there, so, we'll see. Again, my name is Marc Stevens. This has been the episode 9 of the No Stay Project here on, it's just my YouTube channel and on Ustream. We will be live this Saturday on LRN.FM. And again, if you have proof that these laws, these rules apply, just because I'm physically in Arizona, do what all the bureaucrats and politicians, including a Supreme Court Chief Justice, was completely unable to do. And that was provide some damn evidence. Again, my name is Marc Stevens. The website is marcstevens.net. Until next time, salud.